Hallo, agus fáilte go trí seascad den program ag BBC Alba hadal go críosil spórs na ban in Alba. Is me Shauna Ballantyne agus am mí toilite fáilte chuir art chóte na Halba fa is 16 Pauline dul gan studio. Program na heiche noch, vir mi hínis Pauline súlar ars gona gemacin móra as an SWPL an Jerry Chiachgin. Clunni sin von clicket ar squash, Lisa Aitken, who himmerst an his spores. Agus a clicket ar St. Mirren, Kira Nikentur, a brain cho tolich sa hai, a vi rasha clich, a shake her blana. Pauline, welcome back to 360.
Thank you.
I feel like it's been so long since we've had you here on the sofa with your expert football knowledge. Can you just tell us what you've been up to work-wise?
Yeah, so the last kind of few months is always a really busy time for our youth national teams. So back in September, I was away over in Hungary in Budapest, which was lovely, with the under-17 national team. A very new experience for the majority of the players who hadn't previously played international football, but you know, we were absolutely delighted with what we've seen, and we were able to walk away with 2 victories against an A category side ranked higher than us, so that was really satisfying. After that, I did a little bit of cover work with the 19s. Again, a very, very challenging group that we were up against, and the results were difficult to take. But you know, we have to remember that we've just come off the back of COVID, and in terms of where the players are at, it's important to play nations of that level for us to understand where we're at and how to get to that next level in terms of the clubs, the work that the clubs do, and the work of the association. So yeah, a very positive 11 days with the group, a group that I hadn't been able to work with because of obviously COVID, and a lot of lessons learned, I think, for both myself and the players. And then following that, I then went off to Portugal with the 17s, and again, a real challenging group, an A category group. We played Netherlands, Portugal and Sweden. You know, I have to take my hats off to the players. I thought they did fantastically well. Top nations who year in year out make finals, and we were fortunate in terms of being able to hold out against them to very late stages of the game. We scored in all 3 games, which is an incredible achievement for our young players. But again, yeah, just an eye-opening experience and a learning curve in terms of what it is that we need to do better moving forward.
There has been so much going on, and I know in the meantime you've also still been keeping across the SWPL. How are you finding the kind of league shaping up this season so far?
Listen, I think it's really, really exciting. I think, you know, we would always foresee that, you know, Glasgow City Rangers and Celtic would be in those top 3 spots, but obviously there's been a little bit of change, you know, in that kind of mid-table. Obviously, Hearts having a fantastic start to the season, and you know, credit where credit's due, the investment that they've put in as a club, they're obviously now reaping the rewards. So yeah, very, very tight in the middle of the table, and then very similarly quite competitive at the bottom as well, where obviously you've got Aberdeen probably in a position that they really would not want to have seen themselves. And then it's been challenging obviously for Glasgow women in their first season with an SWPL one as well.
Like you say, Aberdeen is probably a team we didn't really expect to be so far down in the league table, but actually we've got a huge weekend coming up, some really, really exciting games, a huge number of derbies across the weekend. Let's start, we'll go to Sunday and then we'll come back to Saturday, but Sunday, I mean, one of the biggest ones, the Edinburgh derby, Hibs versus Hearts.
Yeah, I think
excited for that.
Yeah, you can actually feel the excitement around Oriam, because obviously I'm based there, and the Hearts team are based there as well. And yeah, I think, you know, Hibernian have done very, very well in terms of making the stadium available for games like this, but to see the number of tickets that have been given away or purchased, I think just even adds more to this fixture. And the fact that, you know, Hibs probably find themselves in a sort of unusual situation, because normally they would be in a superior league position to Hearts. But yeah, things are different this year, and yeah, a difficult one to call.
Well, like you say, I mean, a huge number of tickets heading out. I mean, we're looking at hopefully at least 10,000 people in attendance at Easter Road, and that's great, and it's such a great time whilst the Men's World Cup's on to really kind of get Scottish supporters in and getting behind these teams. Yeah,
definitely. It's quite a unique opportunity that we have at this moment in time, and I think, you know, Fiona McIntyre and the SPL have done really, really well in identifying that as an opportunity, and hopefully, you know, people will get out because they're not there's not men's games on, you know, there's no Scotland at the World Cup. So even just to kind of create more visibility to people that maybe haven't been along to watch the girls and women's game in Scotland before, I think would be really good in terms of trying to progress numbers on a more regular basis moving forward.
Do you think we're seeing a shift in what's happening in the East Coast in terms of Hibs and Hearts, or do you think Hibs could pull it back?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I think the game is growing so quickly, and the role of the head coach also. And I think that, you know, probably both Hibs and Hearts and potentially even Rangers and Celtic need more resource in relation to recruitment. And I think that maybe Hibs suffered a little bit more than Hearts in terms of being able to get their players in early enough in pre-season to bed them down for the start of the season. So, you know, they've started to pick up a little bit more momentum. Whether there'll be a shift, I'm not quite sure. Hibs still have a lot of good experienced players within that group. But I think for Hearts, it's about, you know, confidence and self-belief. They've brought in some really good experienced players, and now the rest of the players playing round about them need to enter these games with the same level of confidence.
Well, there's another huge derby in Glasgow at Broadwood Stadium for Rangers hosting Celtic. 1 point between them. That's going to probably be a fiery test too.
Yeah, it definitely is, and it always is. Again, just another one that's really, really difficult to call. Reflecting back on, obviously, Rangers' game against Glasgow City last weekend, probably a draw was a fair result, although Rangers might feel, you know, they could have maybe stolen it in the latter 10-15 minutes of the game. But yeah, to follow it with another monumentous game, it's every player's dream, really. But I think it'll be a really interesting, a really, really tight affair initially. And I think, you know, whoever scores first, it could set them up well to potentially take all 3 points in that fixture.
Absolutely. Well, what a brilliant weekend we've got coming up. We will come back to this again shortly. Wel, fel Lisa Aitken ystreb sws yn rangen yn squash, mis diach y bwlwg le ffefrys dengu ar yn da fil ys y ceir diag. Fa sy'n y cilchwch gyroi y mach as yn spors son 3 blene, mis dŵr I siachyd yn chinius. Hai yn ys ag amas genw sws son yn unia y chali.
Bwch August 9 blian y ywys, betyl Lisa Aitken y fi squash. For yn rong gyrlaich gys son y spors y jarswch ar y chwrst.
I absolutely loved the close confinement in the squash court of just you and somebody else and battling it out. It was kind of a lot of a big mental process as well in terms of where you placed the ball, a bit like chess, combined with sport, and I absolutely loved that. And I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. I went and played my first junior tournament at the age of 10 up in Aberdeen. And it went from there. I think there was 4 of us in the tournament, and I managed to win, and it felt like I'd won Wimbledon or something. I honestly was so chuffed. And yeah, it went from there. So I kept going to lessons, and I was fortunately spotted by one of the best coaches in Scotland at the time, and his son was the world #1, Peter Nicol. And I was making the journey from Montrose up to West Hill once a week, and that became 5 times a week very quickly. And I couldn't really shake the bug and the love that I had for the game. I just couldn't say bye to squash, and yeah, fortunately I'm where I am today, and I'm still loving the game, probably even more now than I am as a 9-year-old.
At sa vai farpish in Malaysia, her Lisa fevre dengue. Werd yn tachart y Sean na behe i'r fall van chwrst or son 3 bliana.
Yeah, I got bitten by a mosquito, contracted dengue fever, and that week or so after that, I don't really remember too much. I was in hospital, all sorts of symptoms from hallucination, fever, vomiting, all of that things. But that kind of, it's a blur. I don't remember too much about it because of how sick I was, but it didn't last too long, only maybe a week to 10 days. Mm-hmm. But the after effect of that, it triggered an autoimmune disease in my body. And I was left with kind of very active autoimmune disease, which the symptoms kind of portrayed as chronic fatigue in quite a severe way. So that then meant that there was 2 years of my life where I moved back home with my parents, sold my car, sold my flat, was pretty debilitated and lived most of that 2 years in my bed with a lot of help from my parents, I guess financially and emotionally and physically. I was very lucky to have them there to do that. So naturally I came off the tour, lost my ranking, was no longer Lisa Aiken's squash player. And yeah, tough time, absolutely tough time. But at the same time, it gave me a chance to stop, come out of this athlete bubble life where you're completely consumed. And it's very easy to be consumed by the sport and reset. So yeah, I think about 3 years after I contracted the dengue fever, I returned to tour. I chose to go back to Malaysia for my very first tournament because I developed quite a lot of anxiety around traveling and being away from home, doing things myself. I was scared that I would get bitten by another mosquito, which we don't really have many of them in Scotland, but for some reason I thought we did. And I played my first tournament back in Malaysia because if I could do that, I could go anywhere. And it was great. I got to the semi-final. I had a great time. I had such a new level of appreciation for the sport itself and having a really fit and healthy body that allowed me to go and do this in a country for a living was just, that level of gratitude takes you so far. It's incredible, the power of it. And I had that in abundance. So it made for a really great few years on tour that followed that.
Well, Lisa rockahog na halbe, ag an pesu gemn in Hawaii Sheiche and in Birmingham na Betraien bliene. Ach rui shachter trippeltjen a vele nog is chilig le baun.
I'd broken my hand 6 weeks out from the games, which was a little bit of alarm bells for the whole team and my doubles partners. I'd also contracted E. coli and was having a lot of stomach issues in the build up to that as well. So not the best preparation, not being able to hold a racket, get on court with my doubles partners, having that blow of breaking the hand was a little bit crushing, and I did a lot of work with my psychologist and visualization because I couldn't actually hit balls. It was very important that I was still thinking about how to hit balls and how I wanted to play, and the power of that was phenomenal. I'll be honest, I had an expectation that I was going to win a medal because I truly believed that was possible. That didn't pan out. I had to pull out of the singles event because I wasn't ready to play due to the hand. And yeah, it just was, unfortunately, probably a couple of weeks too early. That was just by far the biggest disappointment of my career so far. So third Commonwealth Games, third time coming away without a medal. I'll definitely be going back next time.
Ha Lisa Moachel go bhfuil fémar barach boranich an squash. Ayes haie nachis gunnar ní hain is clúiad an Alba noch elle and na runach of Rosnachel.
I mean, we've got 4 women in Scotland who, the top 4 women are all unbelievable squash players, athletes and humans. We're very, very blessed. Like, our team finished 4th at the European Team Championships, and that's the first time since early 90s that that's been done. So I think it shows the great depth within the sport in Scotland at the minute. Georgia Arley's on her way up in the rankings. Hopefully I am too. Alison Thompson, who's at number 3, is coming back from an injury, and she's been as high as 50-ish in the world. So it's great. We're in a great place, but beyond that, we still don't have the depth that we need to be challenging those top 4 spaces. And I think the more that myself, Georgia, Ali and Katrina can be out on the world tour, competing all over the world, it just sends a message to the girls back home in Scotland. And you know what social media is like, as much as we can promote that across all platforms. And I think it's only encouraging for them. Participation levels increase due to having these role models in place. So I believe that it's very important. The frustrating thing for me is I don't get back to Scotland as much as I would like to actually give back and be there in real life. But that's certainly something that I'll look to do later on in my career.
Lisa Nochis nach wie trippeltjen sa meeichen pezense. Is can cúmi ora is strep na rankinen, si Jeshel some title a hosnog.
I think get through this season relatively unscathed in terms of breaking bones and illnesses would be I would deem that as quite a success. But no, I think, I'd be lying if I didn't say I had the top 20 in the world in my sights in terms of rankings. I'm sitting at 28 right now, so I'm not too far away. And I obviously play these girls most weeks on the tour, and I definitely know that I'm capable of doing that. So we have the World Team Championships coming up in December in Cairo, so I'll be going out there to represent Scotland. It'll be nice to put that top back on after the Commonwealth Games, and I'm looking forward to hopefully finishing as high as we can there with the girls. But really, I think it's been a while since I've worked my way through a tournament and picked up a title. So if I can do that this season, then that would be brilliant.
Pauline, what an incredible story.
Yeah, it really was. I said to you earlier, I know Lisa, not well, but obviously she was based at Oriam for various periods where I'm based with work. But yeah, I didn't realise just quite the challenges she'd had, you know, across the journey that she's had to date.
It's remarkable hearing what she's been through. You kind of can't really fathom at some points, but she's back. She is so resilient and is obviously hungrier than ever now.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, with regards to the period of 3 years out that she had, that is just so challenging for any elite performer. But I really liked the way that she spoke about, you know, how it gave her a much greater appreciation to the opportunity she had for the game that she loved, and also, you know, to be fit and healthy and well is really, really important, you know, for us not just as athletes, but for people in general. But I think, you know, like you say, you mentioned resilience, you know, the resilience and the mental strength that she has shown to come back after 3 years out and to be sitting now, you know, number 28 in the world is just absolutely unbelievable. And, you know, all credit to Lisa. You know, as I say, I know her a little bit, but you can tell that she's somebody that's really, really focused and driven, and the work that she puts in on a daily basis. Let's hope that, you know, that next tournament she gets her deserved reward.
Absolutely, and you were even talking about mental strength and the resilience there. I mean, even to still have that after what she went through, especially like what she was saying about the chronic fatigue, to still kind of have your brain so switched on to say, no, I'm going to get through this and I'm going to get back. I mean, how much mental strength does it actually take? Yeah,
I know. I mean, you think about, you know, being bedridden for a couple of weeks and being debilitated in the manner that she was, you know. So even just to get back to normal life would have been hugely challenging. But to go to the levels that she has, yeah, that's just, that's, you know, these individual athletes, obviously, there's only one person that looks after them and can determine to the levels that they go to, and she obviously has that mental strength in abundance, and also a really good support mechanism around her, as she spoke about, in terms of her parents that helped her through that time.
And then even with the Commonwealth Games, that is so devastating. What a blow to kind of miss that after thinking you're there and knowing you're there for so long, just kind of 6 weeks out. That must be so devastating, but you can still see even after that, like I said at the start, she's hungrier than ever.
Yeah, definitely, and I think maybe that's just part of the elite athlete mentality. Unfortunately, we hear on so many occasions, you know, these 4-year tournaments that occur and the preparation that goes into it. You know, most recently Alexei Putellas within the Women's Euros, you know, a huge star that you want to see in that tournament. And it's something that's similar to obviously Lisa, because the Commonwealth Games it's the big tournament for those squash players. So, you know, fingers crossed she can stay fit and healthy and ensure that she can be within that team in the next Commonwealth Games in 4 years.
I so hope that we see her back, because it would just be, what a story that would be.
Yeah, it would be
4 years'
incredible,
time.
wouldn't it?
But what a role model too for the sport.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that the more she can share this story is really important, you know, because I think as young players, it's very easy to struggle in the moments in your career where you maybe have a little bit of a setback, whether that be injury or something else that's out with your control. But you know, the character that you can show in those moments will basically determine the future and the outcome and the journey for you. So the bumps in the road, we call them, you know, can sometimes be the thing that can actually push us on to bigger and greater things, like Lisa shows.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And she also mentioned other one of her teammates who we've had as a feature on the programme, someone you know very well, Georgia Adderley. That's a great team that they've got there.
Yeah, it definitely is, and it's really exciting to see Georgia obviously left international football to go and pursue squash, and I'm so happy that, you know, we did speak way back that what was the goal, and the goal was to compete at the Commonwealth Games, and she's had that experience, and I have no doubt that she'll kick on to much bigger and greater things. But again, such a great inspirational young role model, but obviously trying to follow in the footsteps of Lisa Aitken.
But even for Georgia to have somebody like Lisa to look up to, I mean, you see what she's been through, there's almost no one better for, like we're talking about, that resilience and the mental strength too. Yeah,
definitely, and it's something that we've been pushing in the girls and women's game as well. It's important that the young players that are in the game, or the young players that we're trying to encourage into the game, have these female role models, so that they know if they want to become a football player, they can, because the visibility is there. But like you say, yep, incredible role model for squash, and I'm sure that, you know, when the journey on the court ends for her, she'll come back and she'll spend time putting back into the game, like she mentioned.
You'll need to show them that feature of Lisa. That was brilliant, honestly. We so hope we see her back soon, but thanks very much.
Definitely.
Wel, yn nish clwni sin fo chlycad there ei, St Mirren, Kira Nicanter, che herfi lenten y clwb fat y behe. Hili rash y clych a che gi fi y gorsachach fat ceir blena.
Nuair a bhaid óg íochluigh ar aghaidh Ciara Ní Chontair imach chu seachad. Ach bhain cánaí fesaíche gur a bácáis an spórthaí.
Pretty early, I think. My big cousin, he's a couple of years older than me, so he was an avid football fan and a goalkeeper, and we were playing in the garden and things when we were kind of toddlers probably, and then it was St Mirren Park from when we were kind of 3 or 4. So yeah, pretty early on. My mum tried with ballet. She tried hard, to be fair, and the deal was, if you go to ballet in the morning, you can go to football in the afternoons. So I think it took me until I was about 6 to get her to drop that one. But no, we did a bit of dancing, and then it was always football. School clubs, after school clubs, evening clubs, yeah, everything that I was kind of able to do.
Ba Ciara ar a dóigh clan a clúich bácáis a farpaseach a thula seachcin, nuair a chuir triplaid ACL statóra.
I was playing for Queen's Park at the time. There was no one anywhere near me, and I turned the wrong way, chasing someone down, and it went, and I knew. I've never done it before, but I knew. I actually thought I'd been shot. It was a strange moment, but yeah, no, it went, and it was misdiagnosed, and it takes time to get it right and get it repaired and things. So here we are, 4 years later, back playing. But I'm glad I went through it and did it. I think when you do it and it's that serious, you question, should I get it fixed? Well, I just call it a day. Yeah, it's tough, particularly when you've been used to living life a certain way and particularly active and things. You think, what am I going to do, because it's such a massive change. I was really glad to see that kind of community being set up. I'm going to get involved in that. I think it's really important for young people, especially when it is kind of the biggest thing in your life. And then you lose it, that's a problem for people, but particularly in women. I've read some of the articles that have come out in the last few weeks. I think the good news is there's more research. People know now women are more likely to do it, and young women are likely to do it as well, and that's an issue. So yeah, I think at every level of the game it's probably important to kind of look at it, because it can be life-changing. Maybe you're never quite the same again. It's how to manage it.
Beslánachach ata a bhain Ciara, agus chunig ahrach mhór an gimin an bands na céir bliana nach roi clúich.
Well, the game's completely changed, I think, for women, and continues to do that. Like, okay, we don't necessarily always support English national teams when they go to big competitions, but it was inspiring. And I think it will make a difference in terms of girls looking up and thinking, well, actually, there are careers in it, you can achieve it. When I was coming through, it was like, well, you might be able to go to America. That's it, kind of thing. Now, Scotland players are, you know, real idols and really making a difference to kids. So I don't know that it's necessarily changed massively for me in terms of coming back, but I can see the change in the game. Certainly, like, since I was a kid and coming through, it was boys wouldn't shake your hand, boys wouldn't let you play, all that kind of stuff. So different now.
Nuair a híla go bhil cosise, bhair bhar an clús an club aice héin, St Mirren.
Yeah, it was always going to be St Mirren. I was watching them all the way, kind of hoping that I would still be able to. I wasn't sure, to be fair. It's a decent level, so I was hoping that I would still be able to kind of meet that. Yeah, that was always the plan.
Le imach tail, ha Ciara ar an téasan hóisiachog an Joe Crew. Agus haidjin bheach go bhfuil an skippe a cha hogal harish an tauri, cumasach a ridden na smó is na seaar ruin.
No, I think that's just the position and being lucky with some players around me, to be fair. That's nice. It's nice to have some goals behind you, I suppose. It doesn't mean anything in the games we haven't won, I have to say, but look, it's nice to have that. I wasn't always a striker, but I don't think I've got the legs to play in the wing anymore, so yeah, nice to be scoring goals, I suppose. I think the important thing is there's a kind of youth academy there now. There's a full setup. It probably isn't going to be necessarily some of us that are playing at the kind of senior level now who see the success that's kind of being built, I guess, in the background, because the academy girls are talented, playing well. We've seen them in kind of cup finals this year and things. So yeah, it's exciting to see them come through. I think that's where kind of the future is, which is great. But I think, you know, in terms of us, it's probably just about kind of enjoyment for us in terms of, you know, turnover of players. Last year I wasn't here. A lot of the guys do talk about that and say it was very different last year, and it has come a long way, which is good. I hope it can kind of continue to do that, but I think with the youth coming through, we'll be in a good place. There are brilliant young players playing at this level and with this senior team who I think will be here for a long time and go from strength to strength with the club as it does that.
Ha Garrison lei ag a club, agus ha bort ddírisach an cúlú, a ha Ciara farachan in I Jeffar Vór, seach go bhfuil St Mirren ag gamas ar airtachog agus clúithear in a leisachog.
Well, I think it's a club that can rise through the ranks. The support that we've had from the overall club has been great this year. Things like doing the kit launch was really special. And, you know, we're playing on the pitch where we play at the ground. And yeah, I think with that kind of continued support, I've mentioned the academy, but bringing that through, well, I don't see why St Mirren can't be, you know, as big as the other clubs that have done it in recent years.
Ha Ciara ar sanna chuide seaar a dhéanú den corma huairí ag St Mirren. Agus an club a aice bhí chun massive suiring a bhís na seasonin a Harry Heen.
I'd like to play for as long as possible. I've got quite a demanding job. I've found it's made a big difference to just kind of overall life and kind of work balance. Kind of gives you something to get away from work for, which is good. I'm not sure kind of where we would go if there was to be another ACL injury. That's one I try not to think about. So I think I feel like I've been given a bit of a second chance, and it's a bit of a kind of a second go at it, I suppose. So I'd like to play for as long as possible. This is kind of where I see myself. I love playing for the club that I've supported for this long. So yeah, I hope to be here for a few years, hopefully.
Pauline, how special playing for the club that you've supported your whole life?
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? And I know that, you know, St Mirren were kind of a little bit later, you know, in terms of a club to bring on the girls and women's sides within the overall club. But what an incredible amount of work has been done, you know, to set up academy across the ages into that adults team. And, you know, I think there'll definitely be a side to be reckoned with.
For Ciara, similar to Lisa, she has been through so much. I mean, 4 years out of the game to come back, she obviously loves it just as much as she did back then, but it's a huge amount of time.
Yeah, it definitely is, and I think that, you know, with an ACL injury, you know, the earliest that you realistically can come back is 9 months, but it's not always that time scale for everybody. But the fact that she also had a misdiagnosis, just such an unfortunate situation, and all credit to her that, you know, after getting the surgery, she stuck to her guns and wanted to be back within that environment that gives her so much.
And she's clearly on goal scoring form too, as she said, but there are a few things that she did say that kind of struck me. One of them was, it's the biggest thing in your life and then you lose it.
Yeah, it's quite a sad statement, isn't it? And I think as well, like we spoke about with Lisa, that sometimes you maybe don't appreciate what it is that the game gives you, or the environment, the camaraderie, the support mechanisms and people that you have around you. And I think, you know, for me, one of the important things with any form of injury, but especially long-term injuries, is that continual support that's offered, not just from your kind of close group of friends and family, but from the club or the association that you play with, because we know that, you know, for some people it can be extremely challenging, both, not just physically but mentally as well.
Well, that we kind of spoke about all the mental strength and the resilience needed for an injury like that with Lisa, and it's clearly the same for an ACL, because the other thing that Kieran mentioned is that some players may never be the same after an injury like that.
Yeah, I think that, you know, with that type of injury, and probably with lots of other injuries as well, but specifically that one, is that can you get over the kind of the mental side to it? And I know that, having spoke to some players, potentially these injuries happen during menstruation, so then there becomes an anxiety when you're playing and you're also menstruating at the same time, that your body is more vulnerable and susceptible to this happening again. And as Ciara spoke about as well, you know, there are players that have more than one ruptured ACL, so it's kind of potentially always there in the background, and maybe that's what she's making reference to.
I was going to say, do you think we need more research into why ACLs are happening? And it's not, do you think we need more, it's how important is it to now have more research into this? Yeah,
absolutely is, and it's just now whose responsibility is that to carry out. You know, I think obviously the individual clubs need to try and do as much as they can, but I think it goes much deeper than that, you know, in terms of the national governing bodies, UEFA and FIFA, because it's clearly evident that we require this research. And only earlier this morning there was a tweet put out, and I think there was something like 13 current world-class female players have been injured this season, and it's all ACL injuries.
It's quite incredible hearing that and seeing that, isn't it?
Yeah, and listen, we're not, yes, it is more likely to happen in females because of our physiques and the way that we're built, but also last night I think France then came out after their game in the World Cup to say that the fullback Hernandez had ruptured his ACL as well. So yeah, research definitely must be imminent.
Definitely. And if we just go back to Ciara before we move on at the end of the programme, just seeing St Mirren, she's so happy there. They've played recently for the second time ever at St Mirren Park. I mean, what a great experience to have too. Yeah,
it's fantastic, and I think, you know, watching it there, it makes you smile yourself to remember as well. Even although I played at an elite level, there was a part before that where it was, you know, all about what Ciara's doing. You were there for the joy, for the love of the game, to play for the team that you supported with people that you enjoyed spending time with.
It's great, honestly. I love seeing it and just how happy she is, and we do wish her all the best. We do come into the final minute of the programme, but as we get to the end of the show, we haven't covered all the derbies yet because there's so much more going on this weekend. We do have Dundee United versus Aberdeen, and we've even got the Lanarkshire derby, Motherwell versus Hamilton. How much are you looking forward to seeing how they get on too?
Absolutely fantastic. I think for Dundee to be playing out of Tannadice Park is incredible in their first season, and I think they've had a great start to the season. So a very, very tough game for Aberdeen, who have probably not really found their form yet. And then obviously the North Lanarkshire derby, you know, I think there's only 2 points between those two teams. So yeah, it's going to be an incredible weekend for football.
Is that one you think could go either way?
I think Motherwell might edge it just because of the result that they got. They're trying to build momentum on the basis of the result they got last week.
And what are you thinking about? Obviously Aberdeen are much further down the table than Dundee United, but how do you see that one going?
I think, you know, whoever can get an early foothold in the game will stand them in good stead, but just now it looks like the Aberdeen team are just lacking a little bit of confidence.
Well, Pauline, thank you so much for coming back on the programme. It was great to have you back this week, and we look forward to a very exciting weekend.
Thank you.
Wel, sinna son yn noch, yn a chiachgyn bu Hannah Miley, che fwynig dahuris gemichin a cholahish call-room sy'n studio. Gyda nwr sin, Jan Keen Joch gyfel sif y lantern BBC Alba, ac os gyn calf sif program sy'n bi. Hysyn sif yn ahuris.